I'm Kellie from Screamfeeder. I play bass and founding member of the band. We've been together for like 30 years and we are playing Spring Loaded, and we've played a few of the Spring Loaded tours or festivals over the last few years, but this one's going to be great 'cause it's got like Magic Dirt and Spiderbait and Bodyjar, Shihad, I can't remember who else, but yeah, lots of people, and it'll be heaps of fun. They're always really fun. So yeah,
Beautiful, Kelly. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
my pleasure.
So, as you say, Screamfeeder returned to Brisbane as part of Spring Loaded 2023 at the Sandstone Point Hotel on June 3rd. That's just over a week away, mate. Is the excitement starting to build?
Yeah, so we've actually kind of tried to broaden our set list a little bit for this show, because when we're playing these sort of well, Spring Loaded in particular, it's all about the 90s. So we tend to play songs that will really that the audience will know, not like stuff from our newer albums, because we've been continuing to put out albums. We put out one last year, so we're not playing new stuff, we're playing all older stuff. We want to make sure that we're in the right, we're sort of appealing to the audience and what they're after, yeah.
And it's a pretty impressive lineup. You ran through a bit of it before, but it's all the old school of Aussie rock, like headlined by Spiderbait. It's also got yourselves, Frenzal Rhomb, Bodyjar, Eskimo Joe, Ratcat, Shihad and
Oh
Magic
yeah.
Dirt. Like it's almost like a family reunion for you guys, isn't it? Like it's all sort of used to hang out.
Yeah, so we've played gigs with all of those bands. In the 90s, we toured with Spiderbait and with Magic Dirt. We've played with Shihad and Bodyjar and Ratcat. Um, all of those bands, we're all friends, so yeah, it is like it's not like a family reunion. It's more like a reconnection of people who are doing what they love. It's the audience is there to kind of relive that part of their lives, and a lot of people might bring their kids along who are now teenagers or 20 somethings who grew up listening to this music. So it's this, I call it a nostalgia fest, because that's exactly what it is. It's really nostalgic, but it's also completely relevant. It's not like harking back to the past. It's like that all this music stands today, like it's still as vital as it was.
Yeah. So how important is it for the Australian music scene to have festivals like this that just feature homegrown talent?
Oh, it's hugely important. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing with some of these festivals who try to be everything to everyone, kind of reached peak importance. They have done a good job for a really long time, but potentially now there's a point where people want to be in their tribes again a little bit more. I don't want to use the word tribes, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
growing up, we all liked a certain kind of music, and you knew who was part of your group because you all like the same kind of music. Now I sort of see that everybody likes a bit of everything, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's really healthy, and it's a really great part of the community and the music scene. But I think like having like either genre specific festivals, or something like this is like Spring Loaded is very much like it's bands from this time. We're celebrating this part of our music history, and these people and this audience. It is a huge celebration of that. I think that festivals do need to become more nichey rather than something bits and pieces for everyone. Yeah, you can't please everybody, and you end up in a situation where you may end up shooting yourself in the foot, I think, maybe.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have played with all these bands before, so I want to run through them all individually one at a time, and tell me your favorite or your funniest memory of touring with them.
Oh boy.
We'll start with Spiderbait.
We've played lots of shows with Spiderbait, And Janet was one of the first people I met when we were touring. So I used to go and stay with her in Melbourne, and they used to come and stay with me in Brisbane. There's funny stories abound of us, and like but one of the most recent things, during the pandemic, when Victoria was locked down a lot more than everywhere else, I got to play bass for Spiderbait up in Port Douglas and on the Gold Coast. I played 2 shows with them. I learnt like 14 songs, played these 2 shows, like took her, like subbed in for her, sang some of her songs, and I have this new appreciation for their music and the amazing job that Janet does. So that's my Spiderbait connection.
Rightio. And how about Eskimo Joe?
Well, I mean, Eskimo Joe, I think that they might have been a little bit later in the scheme of things with us. We might have played some festival shows with them, but I didn't really know them. I have met them, really lovely people, but yeah, don't have a big connection beyond just, seeing them backstage and stuff.
We'll kick them to the curb then, and we'll move
No.
on to Ratcat.
We played with Ratcat like way back in our very early days. And we also shared the same manager for a little bit, Joe Segredo. He was our manager, and always loved Ratcat. I have their first single like that came out in like 1987 or whatever it is. And just recently, Tim is part of a Ratcat, what do you call it? Like a band that does their covers, a tribute band called Cat Rat. And it's also with Clint from Something for Kate plays drums, and this other guy, Link in Melbourne, plays bass, and they sometimes get like Phil Jamison to sing some songs. Like they play here and there. It's crazy. Wow, so our connection. Oh, also, when I was in high school, I did a film and TV course, and I made a music video for Baby's Got a Gun, which is their first single.
Wow, that's sensational. And how about Frenzal Rhomb? Everyone's got a Frenzal Rhomb story.
Yeah, I've got a big Frenzal Rhomb story. Of course. It's a very long story, but I'll just say oh no, I'll just condense it. Jay saved my life. I was having a really rough time one night, and I did too many fun things and ended up being really sick. And we were on the Gold Coast somewhere. We were backstage, and I had to go, and I was sick. I was vomiting in the bathrooms, and he accompanied me, held my dreadlocks back, rubbed my back, and I was really sick. Like I was that kind of state where I could have like stopped breathing because I was just like really out of it. And he sat with me the whole time, making sure that I survived. And I know it sounds dramatic, but I really think that if he wasn't there, I may have like not been here anymore. I don't know.
Never know. Wow. I've always known Jay's the top bloke, but that's just the other deal. He's a sweetheart as well.
Yeah, he is a really beautiful person, and they're all really lovely. But that's my story, and like whenever I see him, I'm always like, "You saved my life." And
cool. Yeah. I'm enjoying this. How about Magic Dirt?
Magic Dirt and us go way back. Like the very first time I ever saw Magic Dirt was when we played with Pavement. We were touring the country with Pavement on their first Australian tour, and Magic Dirt hadn't played many gigs around that point in time, and they were first up at Max's Petersham in Sydney, and they were kind of in the middle of a breakup. Like they were quite tumultuous in the early days. They broke up and formed again, and I met them that night, and I sat down, had a really big talk with Dean, the bass player, and we became really good friends. And then we've just done our national tour with Adelita supporting us with our last album that we just put out. And my other band, Majestic Horses, just played with Adelita on the weekend in Queensland. Ad and I are really great friends. We've had a real strong connection with Magic Dirt from the very beginning. The very first time I ever heard them was on the telephone. Their manager, or the label that was putting them out, played this. He said, "You got to listen to this song," and he played me their unreleased first single over the telephone, like the, the wall phone. I was
Yeah.
standing in my kitchen, like going, "Oh my God, this is amazing."
Oh, we got two to go. So Bodyjar.
We played a few shows with Bodyjar back in the day, probably a lot of like all ages shows at the Push and stuff like that. We were kind of probably crossing over in different worlds. Like, the thing about Screamfeeder is we kind of fit into different genres. Bodyjar definitely sort of more of a hardcore kind of pop punk band. And we kind of skirted those fringes. So we would have played some shows with them. I don't know those guys that well. I know them to say hi, but yeah, haven't. I don't think we've ever toured with them, but we've definitely played shows with them, and they're a great band. So I'm really pleased to be able to like see them as like an adult, like a sober human being watching them play. It'll be really great.
Very cool. And we'll finish up with Shihad.
So we've played quite a few shows with Shihad over the years as well. And a real funny story, I mean, it's kind of weird. There's a thing called small fry rock, which is like these people put on gigs for kids at like venues during the daytime. And Tim and I did a duo show where we played some songs, and the place is it was held at the Triffid, which is a big nightclub here in Brisbane. It's pitch black, all the lights are on, it's full of balloons and just like screaming toddlers. And so we played, and John Toogood also played. And so it was just one of those incredibly weird situations where it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, we're drinking coffee, about to play, and we walk on stage and there's just kids. We got the kids to jump on stage with us, and so did John. Like, he sat down, he was playing like Neil Young covers, and mums and dads and kids were just transfixed. They're lovely people. I'm looking forward to seeing them play. I haven't seen them play for ages, so yeah, I can't wait. This lineup is super cool.
I've got to tell you, Kelly, like I've spoken with Cram and John and Adelita so far, and they have all been so glowing in their appraisal of you. And I can see why. You're an absolute sweetheart. I can see why they love you.
Aw, that's so sweet. I love them too. Like, Cram and Adelita and Janet, they're people who I consider, they're in my phone. I call them, I text them, we're in touch, we connected, and those relationships are really important to me. I do value them, and I think that they're all incredible people. Yeah, so I feel very lucky that you said that. Thank you.
And they were like universally to a man. They all had a really beautiful thing to say about you. So like I say,
Aw.
and now I can see why.
Thank you.
So, while we're talking nostalgia, mate, like you've been with Screamfeeder from the start in 1991. So when the band formed back then, mate, like what was the musical climate like that gave birth to Screamfeeder, and where did you fit in?
Yes, that's interesting. So, I moved to Brisbane from Toowoomba. I was in band since I was like 15. I met Tim, and he had the same drive as me. I was just really driven to play music. And I would say, it was ambition, but we never really thought of it as ambition. It was just like, I just want to play music. That's what I do. That's what I love. And it was every fiber of your essence was just about that. So meeting Tim was really fortuitous because we just connected musically, personally, and this level of dedication. And we both bonded over Husker Du, this band from Minnesota in the 80s that had two songwriters, and they had searing, loud, distorted guitars, but like beautiful lyrics and heartfelt songs about emotional things. But they're a hardcore band, and that we both really responded to that, and that's what our aim was, to make music that was searing and loud, and even aggressive at times or whatever, but that had like meaning and really beautiful lyrics. And the climate here at that time, we were just starting to hear of sub pop. In Brisbane it was like 91, so there was no internet. We had a scene here in Brisbane with other like-minded bands like Midget and Bud and Fur, and these were the bands that we played a lot with, and we created a scene out of that. It was a very strong little insular scene as well. And then we would go to Melbourne and Sydney, and we would meet other people in those places, and it was all like you'd share gear, and you'd stay at each other's houses, and you'd put gigs on back home for the bands that you connected with. So it was a very DIY sense, of community sense as well, very much similar to like the DC scene that was happening with like Minor Threat and then Fugazi and Black Flag and all that kind of stuff. And we really had that DIY mentality. It was really important to us to like be in control of everything, do things on our own terms. And I think that's why we still kind of adhere to that. And that's probably why we still put out records today. And, we still play gigs, and we are still together.
So you've been in the industry for over 30 years now, mate. So when you do one day decide to call it a day, do you think you're going to leave the Australian music scene in a stronger place than what it was when you came into it?
The music industry is a funny thing because it's a construct. The music industry exists on top of the hard work of all of the musicians who like will bleed and sweat and cry over their music. And I feel like the pandemic kind of was a huge leveler in lots of ways. The construct couldn't really hold up a lot of things that weren't real in a lot of ways. So I think that potentially, like I said, leveled a few things. Unfortunately, some really important venues closed, and there's always closures and reopenings, or new venues pop up. Like there's always a churn, and that's always going to be. If people are making music for the right reasons and are able to create music in this climate, there's not a lot of money to be made in music. Depending, of course, some people do make a living out of it. It depends. But if people aren't making music for the right reasons, that music industry construct is only going to work for a little bit. It's not going to support that band or that musician or that scene if it's not built on a really strong foundation, which is all about love and commitment and the love of music and the love of creating music and creativity. If it's just all about commerce and money and selling alcohol or, that stuff, it's going to have a short lifespan.
All right, Kellie. Well, thanks very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, mate. That was an awesome show, very inspiring. So, Screamfeeder will be at Spring Loaded 2023 at the Sandstone Point on June the 3rd. Heavy's going to be backstage doing some live interviews with you guys. So,
cool.
And we'll have a beer or a
awesome
drink or something.
Okay, is this a radio thing, or do you write this up, or what do you do with this?
So we print the whole audio. I edit the audio up. We print the whole audio, and I write about a 300 or 400 word teaser to go with it.
Okay.
To let people know, like I do a couple of paragraphs of quotes and what we've talked about, and then I'll let everyone know what's in the rest of the interview. So it's a bit of both, but it's predominantly audio. I don't use the video though. So
okay, great. That's good to know.
I just like that. I like to look at people in the eye. I know when I'm boring them then, because you can see their eyes around or something. It's like no,
Zoom is good for doing like this type of audio interview because you are engaged with the person you're talking
best
to.
thing to come out of COVID, to be honest. Like from my perspective, Zoom is anyway, because like they all used to be just like dial-up telephone calls before, but then they were so impersonal. Like you've got 15 minutes to make a connection with someone that you don't know, you probably never meet, it's got no interest in you whatsoever, and if you're not looking them in the eye, it's really hard to do that. So I love Zoom.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, thanks for your time, and see you at the show.
I'll see you backstage there.
I'll be there.